Oh, Smooth 98.1. It is gone past 7:30 for a Thursday morning. This is Freshly Pressed. I'm Sope Martins here on Smooth Breakfast with you from 6 till 10 every single weekday. And for the next half hour, I have got Cheta Nwanze with me to discuss what's going on in the newspapers and in Nigeria. Good morning, Cheta. How are you?
Good morning, Ilara Kofuma.
I did not hear
Did you
that.
sleep well?
Oh, right.
Did you
Okay.
sleep well?
Well, that's a whole other conversation for later on. Thank you for your thoughts, though. All right, people, we are already streaming live up on youtube.com/smooth
The, the,
981
cor- the correct
FM.
answer the correct answer is Alara Mofuma.
Alaro
But
from
yeah, repeat after me.
mm-hmm.
Alara Mofuma.
uh, with the amount of sleep I got yesterday, it's not going to happen. All right, so yes. So we are streaming live, like
Okay,
I
way
said,
to
up on
dodge.
youtube.com yes, I'm a good dodger, thank you. youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Join us there and join the comments with using the live chat option. You can send WhatsApp messages to 0809 440 981 and take things over to Twitter using the hashtag freshly pressed 981. All right, so let's start off with the gains that we're supposed to get but apparently nothing seems to be happening from the Punch newspaper. NNPC price slash fails to end fuel queues. Yes, this is despite the 17 copper slash in the ex-April price of the commodity. Oil markets has said yesterday that no go. That's not the problem. I'm going to read a quote from the Secretary of IPMAN, Abuja Sulejas Mohammed Shoaibu, who said, and I quote, independent marketers control 85% of the supply chain. If the fuel is available, they should mobilize independent marketers from Maiduguri, Kano, Sokoto, Katsina, Nasarawa, Kogi, and Abuja. Let them move with their trucks to wherever these products are and distribute them. He went on to say, but when the commodity is scarce, of course, you should know that the demand will be high. And so they're saying, you can slash prices all you want. We would have bought even at 148 naira and 17
Hello?
kobo. Hello, I'm here. We would
Okay.
have bought even at
Um
148 naira and 17 kobo. That's not the problem.
of course it's not the problem. We're getting a lesson in economics. Um for the most part, it's not an availability problem. It's a pricing problem. And as we are seeing, slashing the price in order to pretend that things are well will not work. The what was said by the Ipman guy, that's Mohammed Shuaibu, is very correct. Mobilize the marketers. So the code there is mobilize. Mobilize means pay them properly. Let's get this thing. But there are so many things that go into costing. Let us start, for example, with the time of the marketers. Have you been to Satellite Town recently? That is where most of the depots are when this thing is imported. The queues, the traffic, the it's ridiculous. People stay in queues for up to 5 days waiting to get petrol, then to lift it to other parts of the country. And then you expect that they won't factor in that wasted time into the pricing. You are still trying to dictate what the final price will be. When you do that, then of course people will decide that it's not worth their time, it's not profitable enough for them to do. Why should they bother? And as long as we keep lying to ourselves in the face of economic realities, we are going to keep facing this problem. It's just that simple.
Well, in the meantime, we're still here. It's Yuletide period, and queues are still on. So that's going to be a fun few months for us. All right, let's take a look at this next
Advice
article.
to people: just stay at home for the Yuletide and rest.
Wow, Cheta, that's the most solid advice you've given in the history of your analysis here on Freshly Pressed. I don't know what to say. My mind is blown. It's absolutely amazing stuff. All right, let's take a look at this one in from the Guardian newspaper. Nigeria's elite stole 16.25 trillion naira worth of crude oil in 10 years. This is according to the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, which disclosed this yesterday in a statement signed by its head of communications and advocacy. And according to the information and data provided by an average of 8 companies, the losses occurred from 2009 to 2020. Your thoughts, Cheta?
When I read this story, I didn't even know where to start from. The first question is, what is Nigeria's elite? I think that's the most fundamental question, because just telling us Nigeria's elite stole so and so in 12 years is the tail is wagging the dog. Nigeria's elite is a catch-all phrase that assigns responsibility to no one. And as long as we don't have anything that assigns responsibility to a specific individual or a group of specific individuals, then this is just going to continue. I think it was important for me to get that out first, because it makes all the analysis I'm about to do more or less useless if we don't have anybody to hold for this
Because right
colossal
now, all we have is an umbrella term.
All we have is an umbrella term. Now, it is a very lucrative business, and I think I should quiet my mouth and look for ways to get involved, because those school fees will not pay for themselves. If you can't beat
them, join them?
I'm a human being at the end of the day. Now, let us look at it in terms of numbers. The amount that is said stolen comes to about 46 point something billion dollars, which is almost $4 billion a year, which simply disappears from government coffers, and which means that it's not going into the system to do anything. Consider this following scenario. With the exception of 2012 and 2013, in our history, our national budget has never surpassed $30 billion as real value. That immediately makes the scale of the problem clear. If 13% of your national budget simply walks away every year, consider the knock-on effects. But I want to consider something even more insidious. Last year, in the year 2021, the country's revenue was roughly $11 billion. Our budget last year was roughly $28 billion. Our revenue was about $11 billion, which means that we borrowed the rest of it. If $4 billion disappeared in this lucrative exercise, that is a third of our entire national revenue that disappeared last year. Come on. And then you are just telling me it's elite. It tells me that nobody is taking this problem with the seriousness it deserves. So, public service advice: if you can't beat them, join them.
So, Cheta, for me, this is going to probably sound like a crude oil theft 101, beginner first lessons type of question. But we have oil producing countries all around the world. And yes, we see corruption when it comes to some of these countries looking at, and the national companies that surround them, looking at, like, for example, Petrobras. But what makes Nigeria special? Like, why are we in this particular conundrum? Why are we different, so different from the rest?
We're not special. We're lazy. That's the difference. See, one thing that I have learned is that corruption is human. I don't think I'm going to complain too much about corruption going forward, for the simple fact that as I've continued my work over the years, I've come to learn that the problem that we have here is not corruption per se, it's the nature of the corruption. Okay. So, and the best analogy I can give is football. It is clear that, see, Qatar paid bribes to get the World Cup that they're currently hosting very well. From that FIFA documentary, if those of you who haven't watched it, take your time to watch it. Yeah, Russia paid bribes, Brazil paid bribes, South Africa paid bribes, Germany paid bribes. So it is clear that paying bribes was something that host countries do in order to get the World Cup. That is corruption. But if you look at the quality of the corruption, When in 2010, the Qatari were bidding to host this World Cup, they were up against the United States. The FIFA Executive Committee at the time had 24 members, and they approached those of them who they felt were amenable to collect something. Consider what the time member of the FIFA Executive Committee, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try to start. Consider what Platini of France collected. They both collected deals. So, for example, since 2010, Bein Sports, which is a Qatari broadcaster, has been broadcasting the French league. The state of Qatar bought PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, and in that time, three of the most expensive footballers in the world, two of them will be in the final, Kylian Mbappe and Lionel Messi. Then Neymar, they play for PSG in what people call a farmers league in France. Kylian Mbappe turned down an offer to go to Real Madrid, one of the most storied clubs in the world, in order to stay in PSG, and he's earning more than $1 million a week. That is investment that has entered into the French economy and has been in the French economy for 12 years since Qatar got the bid. On the other hand, Amos Adamu, who was Nigeria's member of FIFA Executive Committee, collected $1.5 million, put it in his back pocket. The money don't finish. So the problem with us is not corruption per se. Sope, what's the Yoruba word for corruption?
I don't know. We had this debate.
I don't know the Igbo word for corruption either. Basically, corruption is a European concept. It is the nature. Our corruption, our own level of corruption, unfortunately, is extremely low level. It's not productive. And that's what we need to focus on. And this is it, going away from the whole corruption conversation. Our focus should be on productivity. It affects every sector. We are simply not productive enough in this country. That is where the problem lies.
All right. Let's take a look at your messages now. Idima Puza from Surulere says, fuel scarcity wahala and the consequences of transport fares increase. What happened to the DSS's 48 hours chakara? Are they just barking without biting? Victor Shion says, Nigeria is just a peculiar country. A container will leave China and land in Nigeria in 2 weeks, but this same container will spend over 2 months from Apapa to Ikeja. The same applies to fuel distribution. Some set of cabals are bent on frustrating the smooth processes in Nigeria, whilst Yinka Bolu says, I don't understand. We expected more from NEITI because what is the meaning of Nigeria's elites? Looking at Cheta, for example, we can argue that he's an elite. So did he steal crude oil, or is there something we just don't know? Our mental laziness is just on another level. Clem from Badagry says, Cheta is right. Using that term elites is like that nursery rhyme we read back in school that talks about Mr. Nobody. Whenever mischief is done and you ask who did it, all you hear is Mr. Nobody. Dami from Maryland says, hold on, 10 years from now. Okay, so Dan from Maryland says corruption in Yoruba may be loosely translated as Iwa Ibaje. And also says
loosely translated.
Yes.
I'm looking for a single word.
So we have a debate on this. Yeah, we had a debate on the word for corruption. I'm not sure we got to a consensus, but Ibaje was in there. He also says 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you will see oil will bring us ruin. It's the devil's excrement. He's taking a quote from Juan Pablo Perez Alfonso, the Venezuelan oil minister and OPEC co-founder. Goes on to say Nigerians leaders have been running the country on lies for decades. The truth has woken up and is outrunning it, like Usain Bolt. And Wale says, Chopper, I'm tired of. That's all. That's the whole message. Oh, Wale, some of us are, yes. Okay, this one in from Emeka, who says, am I going to pronounce this right? Is it Abetele? That's the Yoruba word for corruption. And I haven't heard that one before. And
I've asked Yoruba scholars about this. They don't have a single word. They have a collection of words. I've asked Hausa scholars, I've asked Igbo scholars, I've also asked Edo scholars. In all of our languages, it still keeps coming down to the same thing. It's a collection of words that defines the concept not a single word for it. That's very telling.
Well, Austin from Satellite says it's Mau Mau. Godwin
Oh,
from
you see,
Bagada.
so suddenly in a sample of three, we've had three different words.
Okay. Ah, wow.
I rest
See,
my case.
people, we're getting into dictionary into dictionary territory. It's all right. We started with Abeta being the word for bribery, not corruption. We move on. And Godwin from Bagada says those who steal our funds and invest here in the country to create wealth and employment, is that productive corruption? Question.
Yes, if but then the thing is, we're moving away
I'm actually just going to
from
move
the
on.
premise of the show.
We're moving on to another topic now. To another article which comes in from the Punch newspaper. UK teachers recruitment, NEITI hails members quality. So Nigeria has now been listed among one of the 9 countries, and among the African countries that make up that 9 countries, whose citizens can now apply for qualified teacher status through the Teaching Regulation Agency in the United Kingdom. This will start off from February 2023, with the Nigerian Union of Teachers describing the invitation as a sign that Nigerian teachers are of high quality. We've made the list along with Singapore, Ukraine, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Hong Kong, and Ghana, and some other countries. Cheta, let's take a look at this, because I've had this conversation during Business Express and slightly earlier about, well, the NUT is very, very happy about this, but I'm not sure this is something that we should be looking at with kind eyes.
Well, we're again, like with the fuel thing, we're getting a serious lesson in economics. Ever since the UK shot itself in the foot with Brexit, they've been looking for people, because suddenly all the Europeans who used to come to fill the shortfall in the UK have suddenly disappeared. They are now going to places like France instead. So the UK is casting the net further afield in order to get people from different countries to fill the vacancies that have been created in their various sectors. It's one of history's biggest ironies that Brexit was a racist thing because they couldn't stand the thought of immigrants, and then they've ended up, instead of having white immigrants who by the time their children grow up they will be as British as the next
easily assimilated. Yes.
They've ended up with black and brown immigrants. It's one of history's biggest paradox. The second big paradox is the fact that the government itself is coming out with these policies to absorb people, because they know that that is the only way to help the economy.
Now,
but the same government,
you're focusing on the UK. Can we focus on Nigeria?
I know, I will come to Nigeria. Nigeria. I just want to, because the point I'm trying to bring out here, so for those of us who never listen, which we tend not to do in Nigeria, is that countries look after their interests. Take the nurses thing, for example. Nigeria is on a list of what they call red zone countries, where the UK is not supposed to come to recruit nurses. The UK itself is flouting their own regulation because it is in their economic interest too. Now, regarding the NUT is backing up the wrong tree when they are beating their chest on top of this thing to say that it shows that Nigerian teachers are of high quality. The schools that will suffer the effect of this most immediately are the high-end schools, such as British International School, Dowen College, Vivian Fowler, Corona, St. Saviour's, Atlantic Hall. Those are the schools that pay their teachers well enough for their teachers to be able to afford to migrate. And keep in mind that migration is not cheap. It's not a cheap exercise. Starting from the whole tuberculosis test you will do, and the amount of the amounts that you have to show, and then it's not cheap. The people who can afford it are definitely not in Ubojobo College. Secondly, the next order effects are those who are in private schools in estates in Lagos. So you have schools such as Meadow Hall, DBB, all those are the second set of schools that will suffer it. Again, I repeat, Bujobo College isn't going to suffer this because the quality of teachers in Bujobo College
is not the same as the quality of teachers in these schools.
Very low. It's simple. Yes. So the way these countries work, the way countries like the UK work, is that they have, if you read through, they have something called QTS, and they are very clear. The teachers who they will give the teachers who they will give these the papers to allow them to move, something called QTS. It's not the kind that Oshomole or El Rufai gave exams and they failed. Those ones will not go. So essentially, we will end up being left with those ones who cannot pass the exams to teach our children. That is where the problem is. But hey, our government couldn't even care less. They are probably going to tell teachers that, oh, go on their farm or something. And see, when this caca hits the fan, we will be left with our pants down. That is what is going to happen. It's unfortunate, but that is where it is.
And Solomon up on Twitter, hashtag FreshlyPressed981 says the federal government is very excited to let the UK get teachers from Nigeria. Up on YouTube, greetings to Emmanuel, Annie, and Stephen Esebere. And do keep sending your messages in. You can continue to use the live chat function up on that YouTube up on the YouTube feed, and yeah, we'll be able to read it out. Going over to WhatsApp on 0809 444 981. Olumide from Lekki says the elite are those individuals or a collective that can influence the government at both state and national levels. Oil theft is a scam. These products largely were exported, but not listed in the country's accounts. Linda from Yaba says human capital is a great resource and Nigeria had it. But when we fail to acknowledge and appreciate our own, others will help us to do so. It started with families and their brilliant children, IT, doctors, nurses, now teachers. What's left? Maybe we wait for the next request. And Emeka from Amua says, my undergraduate project in the University of Benin was on primary school teachers. Many of them struggled to fill my questionnaire despite how simple it was. Are these the same teachers the UK will try to recruit? Well, now you've heard where they'll probably start from, and who knows what could happen. And Victor Shellen says, UK and Canada will always come for the best hands and skills. I mean, to be fair, that is their mandate. They're supposed to look out to their country, their economy, and their people. All right, let's move things along now. The next article that we'll take a look at comes in from the Guardian newspaper. Whistleblower policy has lost momentum, the federal government laments. So the Federal Executive Council yesterday lamented that about this loss of momentum yesterday, despite the fact that it was launched on December 21st, 2016, but it seems to have lost some of its steam. I remember when it was launched, and I remember a great fanfare made about a whistleblower that had come forth and the money that was going to be paid. And Cheta, I see your expression. Go ahead, share your thoughts.
And you remember what I said back then?
Remind me.
They go chopping money.
Ah, yes, I remember that now.
So the whistleblower that eventually sued, and I can't find any records. Maybe I didn't search hard enough. I couldn't find any records of how far the case has gone, whether he lost the case or whether he won the case. He said his lawsuit was predicated on the fact that the money that he was expecting to get, the money that he was supposed to be paid, was not paid. Somebody edited the money. So essentially, the moment that happened, any potential future whistleblower will probably go and whistleblow to the people where they crimp the money anyway, instead of whistleblowing to the governments. The high point of that policy was the Ikoyi Apartments kerfuffle from some years ago, when we had $43.5 million in cash, £27,800 in cash, and 23.2 million naira in cash. And the government claimed not long after that they had paid 421 million naira to the whistleblower. And it was that whistleblower specifically who shouted somewhere that I didn't receive such money. When such a thing happened, then it is not a surprise that the policy has eventually fizzled away. When I don't remember, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember anybody being sued and eventually jailed for that Ikoyi apartment thing. What I remember was that the defense, was it the National Intelligence Agency? Yes, the National Intelligence Agency came forward and claimed that cash and said that they were using it for operations. So which means that if it's intelligence services that actually own the cash and somebody whistle blew, then there's a possibility that the person's life is in danger, which means that he would end up being an example of not what to do to other potential whistleblowers. You see how some of these things go wrong. Essentially, it's a story, and like so many tales in this country, it's a tale of bad process. It was always going to fizzle out.
And
So we can continue our lamentations.
Barrister Dan Okuda from Igondo says, the fight against corruption by President Buhari is a colossal failure. Many whistleblowers were shortchanged. And now for the final few minutes, let's focus on this because it is the 15th of December. It's D-Day, people. 80 billion Naira USSD debts weaken digital channels as new Naira notes arrive. So Nigerians, for the first time today, will be able to exchange the redesigned 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira notes, which is supposed to drastically reduce the volume of cash among the public. However, low infrastructure, poor network connectivity, and unresolved unstructured supplementary service data debts owed to telecoms operators by banks and other financial institutions might be posing challenges for this policy ahead of the expected surge that we're supposed to see in digital payments. Cheta, over to you.
Well, some of these things is just wait and see. I'm not even sure that the real harmful policy is this Naira, is this repainting of the Naira, because that's what they did. They didn't redesign anything, they just repainted the currency. Or as some people say, applied a Snapchat filter to it. I think that what will eventually affect all of us negatively is the follow-up policy with regards this the amount of cash that you can withdraw and all of that. If the CBN pushes on with that policy, I expect that there will be some negative economic outcomes, not some, many. So, for example, we've had a lot of failed e-transactions recently. And you can see it. Trying to transfer money has become that much more difficult. It is due to a reported decline in number of skilled IT staff at NIBS and several banks. So again, Japa rears its head. If this skill gaps is not addressed, the new policy has started on a poor footing. The cash withdrawal limits would increase the volume of transactions on these channels. As we know, as we've talked about so often, the infrastructure in its current state cannot handle the volume that is coming. Traders who need more than 40,000 Naira of cash to transact daily will be forced to go to banks and pay that steep 5 or 10% charge to access funds. Who do you think will bear that cost? Who do you think traders will pass that cost on to? That's one of the things that needs to be looked at. And the more people are dissatisfied by the quality of service they are getting, the more they would resort to keeping money under their beds rather than in the banks. That in itself will lead to even more problems because things like armed robbery will rise. And then there's also the infrastructural costs. ATMs are machines, they need maintenance. The more you use them, and you are using them for smaller notes and less for smaller notes and lesser amounts, which means that more people will need ATMs to withdraw. The whole thing is just not properly thought through, and it's just going to end up being a royal mess.
Chika says it's quite laughable to hear the government say that the whistleblower has fizzled away. What government did exposing of George Ubo against the then EFCC chairman? What has the federal government done with the 89 trillion Naira saga with the CBN raised by the Honorable Gudaji? He's being shut down. The federal government intentionally killed the policy, and that's simple. And Imo from Ikeja says, Our dear government cares about us and the economy so much that they put the cart before the horse. This cashless policy is going to be a very, very, very resounding success. And I'll take this final one from Peter from Festac, who says, I received the repainted Naira notes. Emefiele needs to answer some questions. Okay, and that's that. Cheta, thank you very much.
Can I say something finally?
Very quickly.
We can very quickly judge the success of the next president when he comes into power. His first bill should be to send, his first action should be to send a bill to the National Assembly to sack Emefiele. If he does not do that, then he has failed from day one.
Well, you heard the man. Your reactions will come in after the show. Or actually, no, send your reactions to him. He's up on Twitter at Chixta, CHXTA. And you can find him also posting pictures of random places in Nigeria and beyond. He's at Chixta B up on Instagram. All right, Cheta, thank you very much. I shall see you again on another